So, yeah, my name is Anthony Sequeira, as you can see from the slide that's being pushed to you now. I am one of the Juniper trainers here at CBT Nuggets. And, Jack, if you could go to the next slide, we are going to show our wonderful folks just how many Juniper courses that we have coming out here at CBT Nuggets. Some of these are done. So here we can see the courses, folks. We are serious about Juniper training. I wanted to let you know that right off the bat. A lot of companies will dip their toe into Juniper training, and how they do that is they will give you the course JNCIA Junos, the kind of CCNA equivalent to use Cisco certification language. That's the course that a lot of companies might do. In fact, not many, but some online training companies like us will do. And then it's so sad because they kind of say, all right, we get the basics of Juniper for our people, and now we're going to move into more advanced subjects in a discipline like Cisco. So what's great about CBT Nuggets is we are really super committed to Juniper, as you can see. We've got the certified specialist in security done. We've got the enterprise track we're doing. So right now, done is layer 2. Right now, complete is layer 2 security. I will finish OSPF right when I hang up from this call. So OSPF will finish today. Give me about 24 hours to get all the flashcards and everything else done that goes along with that course. So you'll probably see it pushed tomorrow. And then ISIS. I will be starting ISIS tomorrow. Super excited about that. Then BGP, then protocol independent routing and tunnels, and finally high availability. So what the point was today, twofold. Number one, just to confirm out there to everybody that we're super excited by Juniper Technologies, and we're super excited for these courses, and there's people viewing them like crazy numbers. Again, I think one of the issues is there aren't a lot of companies out there that are serious about getting behind Juniper. Cisco dominates the router and switching space, and even I think Cisco's numbers even edge out Juniper when it comes to security, although don't quote me on that. I'm not sure on that one. But obviously, like if you look at the core business of routing, Cisco dominates. But I'll tell you what, a lot of people love Juniper routers as an alternative, and that's why we are super serious about Juniper training here at CBT Nuggets, and we'll keep the Juniper titles coming for you. So our next slide, Jack, gives our students option 1 when it comes to hands-on lab practice. And I wanted to give our students 6 options in this webinar with a bonus option. That's right, you get a bonus option today that I just thought to look for, because I'm like, gosh, what am I missing? And it's funny, we've actually come up with another option for you for Juniper hands-on. This is a big concern for students because they realize, okay, to really master this technology, I need 2 things. I need, number 1, a course that doesn't suck. A course, in fact, that not only doesn't suck, is like some of the greatest training ever. And I'm proud to say that we're doing that here at CBT Nuggets. We're creating Juniper training that you're going to love. I know this because I have viewed the other options that are out there, and I can really speak to the quality of our training here at CBT Nuggets. But they don't just need to, view those nuggets on their phone or their iPad or their computer. They obviously also need to practice with the Juniper equipment. And that gets a little scary because, again, Cisco tends to dominate this space. So you see all these options out there for Cisco hands-on, but are there options for Juniper in the same regard for students? And there certainly is many options. The first one that I list is the one you probably won't do. But keep in mind that you can go up to juniper.net and you can chat with a online representative there. And I've done this, and they're super helpful. I mean, you can let them know, look, I am not an enterprise customer. I am a student on a student budget. I struggle buying Starbucks every day. I can't spend 80 grand or 120 grand or 200 grand on a practice rack. So they will help you identify the devices that are lower cost. Obviously, these devices are targeted at like small branches and small home networks and things of that nature, and they could help you build a lab at as low cost as is possible for them. Unfortunately, I'll be very honest here, many times that price tag is more than we're willing to spend as students. So good news, there's lots of other options.
So Jack, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's stay on this option number one, and then we'll move to option number two when you're ready.
Absolutely. When we're studying Cisco, a lot of times our best option is to jump out on eBay and grab a quick little device so that we can practice on it. Would you recommend trying that route for Juniper, or would you stay with the newer models?
Yeah, we are definitely, in fact, it's one of our options, going to talk about gray market, used equipment, because you don't have the relationship, the licensing contract with Juniper in that case. But guess what, Jack? Great news. Absolute same. You can get the 8-year-old model of the Juniper device off of eBay just like you do with Cisco. You also have at Juniper a feature navigator. So you can find out, so in fact, this is really funny, right? For the Layer 2 security course that I did just a couple weeks ago, we finished that up. In that course, the used eBay equipment that I bought to build a rack, right, it couldn't do one feature, which, not the end of the world at all. Like, I must have taught the students in that course literally like 24 different Layer 2 security mechanisms. And my device, my used, very inexpensive device, I think it cost me like $170 US. That device couldn't do one of the things that we had in that course. So, Jack, used equipment, totally an option. In fact, if we go to option number 2 here, in my slides, you'll see your enterprise, your own enterprise. Jack, you're in CBT Nuggets. If you go to Kurt or any of the IT guys for our enterprise, they're going to tell you, oh, dude, yeah, we have a couple of SRXs collecting dust in a corner somewhere, or we have a couple of EX switches collecting dust, somewhere. So always be sure to check with the enterprise. Now, I know the nature of this game that we play means that several people listening to me right now are like, dude, I'm not in an enterprise yet. So who the hell am I going to ask? And that is a great point. For students that aren't yet in a big enterprise working, I know this option is not valid for you, but I wanted to bring it up. As a matter of fact, you could go to, I'm sure, some large enterprises in your town or city and say, hey, I'm a student. Can I borrow some of the equipment that you've got literally collecting dust somewhere in the office? And a lot of times this equipment is more than adequate for our studies. So, Jack, to your question and point, option number 3 is used Juniper equipment. And you can see from this slide, I went and blacked out the seller information because I don't want to, try and say here that some person on eBay is completely legitimate if I have not myself tried them. But notice they've had this particular person who's selling a nice little EX4200 24T, which would be great to practice Layer 2 with. Notice they've got 8,918 feedback comments, and 100% of them were positive. So this particular person is someone you could definitely trust. Notice there's a buy it now price on this particular unit. It's $215 US. You might be able to do better than that, by the way, if you shop around. But the point is, yeah, we can build great practice racks utilizing something like an eBay. Now, keep in mind, I alluded to this earlier in this webinar, and I need to remind you, you do want to do your homework on what operating system is installed in this device. And why you care is because it is going to impact which features you can practice. So newer features might not be available on some older code that's pre-installed in this device, and it's not like you're going to have a license that you can go to Juniper with and say, give me the latest code. So keep that in mind. I'll tell you, it was really interesting when I bought my Juniper equipment for these courses that I'm delivering right now from eBay. I was able to contact the seller, and I said, hey, thanks for taking my call. He said, yeah, no problem. I said, yeah, I'm looking at your eBay sale here, and I notice you have 12 EX switches. And what code are they running? You didn't make it clear what operating system is installed, and obviously that's the Junos operating system that we're talking about. I said, you didn't make it clear what Junos flavor we're talking about here. And he said, oh, yeah, let me check with my technicians. So he got back with me. The technician got back with me, actually, and said, hey, Anthony, here's the operating systems that are on these 10 or 12 devices that we have. And sure enough, they ranged in version, and I was like, oh, okay, there's 2 of them that you have that are running a relatively later version of code. I want those. So it worked out really well. Had I not gone through that little process with them, I'm sure they would have done the smart thing, right, and sold me the older operating systems. They would have gotten rid of those first. But do a little investigating, because you want the latest operating system that you can find to have an ideal practice lab type situation.
Anthony, I have another questions for you if you have a second.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah. Let me know. What are your questions?
Okay, I'm looking at this slide and at that particular example.
Yep.
Now, I'm a Cisco student. I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to compare apples to apples. This almost looks similar to what I could expect to find in terms of a 3550 or even a 3750 with newer code on it. Could you actually compare apples to apples that way?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, you sure can. I mean, we are looking at a device that's a lot like the 3500, 3600 series from Cisco, and you're going to find a very similar feature set. So, yeah, if you're a Cisco guy, you can leverage your experience that way, and you can very easily get similar styles of equipment. One thing I do in each of the classes that I think is super important is I'm very upfront with the students okay, here's the device that I bought from eBay. Here's how expensive it was at the time, and here's what it can't do. Obviously, as I alluded to, there was only one thing I couldn't do on my EX switch in my Layer 2 security course, and it was no big deal. I was able to show the students the code that would work on a newer device. So, yeah, we're very upfront about how to build a use lab inexpensively. And by the way, I'm not even saying that's the best option. We have several more options that we're going to cover in this webinar, and it's great that they exist. In fact, it's probably a good time, I guess, to go to option 4. Notice, and again, I'm not endorsing the one screen capture I did here of Juniper Online Labs. In fact, I didn't even research these guys at all, but I just wanted to give you a sample of a ton of results that came up when it comes to Juniper Online Lab rentals. And I got to be honest with everybody, this is what I would have done as a student. I didn't want to go through all this eBay searching and get all these devices and rack and stack them and pay for the electricity and deal with any problems they might have because they're used. I would have gone this route as a student. The reason why I didn't really just came down to when I'm recording our Juniper courses, I really want to make sure that I have full control. Like, what if this particular outfit had an outage, or whatever. One of the devices in my rack wasn't functioning right. I just wanted more control than that. But for a lot of times for students, they don't have those stresses. The student's like, hey, yeah, I just would love to get on Juniper gear for 2 hours tomorrow. And if there was a problem with the equipment and I had to come back 2 hours later, that's fine too. So renting time on Juniper racks can be very exciting, and you have a variety of devices for practicing everything you might want to practice. That's what these rack rental places do. They construct a rack that would allow students to practice routing, switching, security, and ISP level stuff oftentimes. So the beauty of the rack rental option is you're getting whatever device class that you need in order to get the job done. Now, there's an even cooler option than renting rack space. So, Jack, option number 5 is something called Junosphere. Now, Junosphere, a lot of students kind of discount this, I think, because like if you go up to CDW, for instance, which is a bona fide Juniper reseller, and you look at Junosphere, what Junosphere is, by the way, is a simulation, not a simulation, it's an emulation. So they took the Juniper operating systems and they run them as virtual machines. And I know what everyone's thinking, JNS3, and you're absolutely right. So this is basically the equivalent of GNS3. Did I say JNS3? I think I may have. Anyways, this is the equivalent of GNS3. That's hilarious. I have Juniper on the brain. So you have GNS3 for emulating Cisco routers by running the actual operating system as a VM. Junosphere is something interesting. It's the official way to do this from Juniper. I don't know why Cisco took so long to give us Viral, which is the official version of VMing their equipment. So this is an alternative to GNS3, and I think it's roughly about $200 per year to run. Well, here's the equivalent of that in the Juniper environment. And the good news is it's initially $50 to get subscribed, but a lot of students don't know about that price. They see Junosphere being sold for use in the enterprise, where you buy all the software and then set up an appliance or a server to run this, and it's like $20,000. But understand, there's a cloud-based version that will allow you to, for just the starting price of $50, emulate up to 10 virtual machines for a 24-hour period, and this is obviously a great thing. In fact, I went ahead and subscribed and demonstrated this and how it all works inside of the Juniper ENT series here at CBT Nuggets. There was one annoyance that I ran into, and hopefully they'll straighten this out, but you spend your $50 for time on their cloud-based Junosphere, and then it took literally like 9 business days before I got a response and my credentials. So just please keep that in mind, that it's not an immediate solution. It's one that, for whatever reason, is going to take you about 9 days to get officially signed up for. Now, I mentioned GNS3, Jack, and option number 6 is GNS3. There is some image out there, and it is the Junos operating system, and it's GNS3 ready. It's called Olive, and, it's probably like a 4 gigabyte download, but it is the Juniper operating system, and if you follow instructions that you're going to search for on the internet, you are going to have a Juniper device fired up. And obviously what's really cool about that is you could readily integrate with the Cisco devices that you have in GNS3. So you could get your Cisco practice and your Juniper practice utilizing this Olive download. Now, I will admit that I did not bother to do anything with this, right? Because for my classes, as you know, I went two routes. I went the used equipment route, and I went the Junosphere in the cloud for $50 route. So those were the options I chose to do. I didn't want to jump through all the hoops that might exist with this Olive product. I mean, first of all, you want to make sure you're downloading a version of Olive that's virus-free. Second of all, you want to get some instructions that supposedly work with GNS3, so you're not pulling your hair out trying to get this to function, but it is an option. Now, like GNS3 itself for Cisco, you have a challenge here, and that is this is for the router operating system. So you are not going to have like an EX switch that you can experiment with here. But if your concern at the time is to practice with the routing features, OSPF, ISIS, BGP, God forbid RIP, whatever operating system you need to practice with, you would have that ability with the Olive product. The fans of this are all over the internet, and I guess it works great. As I said, I must admit, I did not bother with any of it.
Anthony, a quick
question.
question.
It is a valid option.
Sorry about that. Quick question. I just wanted to touch back on that fact that you're saying that the ESX switch cannot be emulated in GNS3. We've seen that same type of issue with Cisco study as well, and we do have a question asking if Juniper, the Olive image, can emulate any of the layer 2 functions.
Yeah, it really doesn't. So how you would want to practice switching really would be rental racks or purchasing used EX devices, or I would say the Junosphere in the cloud gives you a switch-like device, so you can practice that way. But from what my understanding is, with GNS3, no layer 2 Juniper switching. I may be completely wrong on that, but I certainly couldn't find anything. And remember, I'm not knocking GNS3 here by any stretch of the imagination, but remember, GNS3 did that big Kickstarter. Hey, we're bringing layer 2 to GNS3. How exciting. It's going to be layer 2 switch capabilities. And what did they do? Well, they just gave us an interface to run what's called the iOS on Unix. I guess its official name is IOU. And that's super sketchy. I mean, the only people that are supposed to have that code is Cisco employees. So, yeah, I don't like playing those games, right?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the good route to go, but Olive seems like a good match. Especially, you kind of touched on it a second ago, saying that the GNS3 will allow the Juniper routers to interface with the Cisco routers, if I heard you correctly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. You know what else is a possibility here is I guarantee you someone's got Juniper running in viral. So that's another option.
That's interesting.
Yeah, this is a virtual machine, this Olive, and I bet you someone's already gotten it running in viral. So another interesting route to go. And our bonus option, the 7th option, which I got to admit is the least compelling, and that's why I pretty much didn't include it in our presentation here officially, but that's simulation technology. I think you mentioned, Jack, when we were talking before the webinar started about like a Cybex book would be a great example, right? And the Cybex book has a CD-ROM in the back, and you load it up, and it allows you to type in commands that you are responsible for knowledge of in the exam environment. This is, unfortunately, the least compelling option, right? Because it's not the real operating system. Typically, what people do that release simulations are using like Flash-based technology. So it's just this little field, and if you type in set protocols, OSPF, Area 1, Gigabit Ethernet, 000.0, passive, and you do all that just correctly, all it's intelligent enough to do is just grade your data input, right? You're not actually working with the operating system, and it can't interpret that command. I'm not saying simulations aren't beneficial. I'm just saying that oftentimes they're, the least exciting option when it comes to practicing hands-on because you don't have the actual operating system. In fact, it's really funny. A lot of people won't even use Junosphere or GNS3. And when I ask them, why won't you use Junosphere or GNS3 for, Juniper practice or Cisco practice respectfully, they say, well, because I don't want there to be some problem regarding the emulation, and that's why it's not working. So a lot of people will only practice with rental racks or used or new equipment because they want to make sure that if they run into a problem, that it's truly a problem and it's not an issue with the emulation of the equipment. So simulations get even worse. You build this simulation and you're like, well, this isn't working, and I don't know if it's because I broke the simulation or not. So that is definitely an issue when it comes to practice labbing, regardless of any technology that we're working with. Jack, if you could go to the next slide, it's got all my contact information on there. I'm sure we've got lots of questions in the audience, and we can certainly take some of those now. But I wanted to give everyone my blog. I listed the blog first because that's where I'm most active. My second most active media is Twitter, then Facebook, then LinkedIn, then Google+, and of course our own CBT Nugget communities. But I wanted to give everyone my contact info. And if you're here, I'm sure you're excited about mastering Juniper. And man, oh man, is it fun. I'm a Cisco certified internetwork expert, so I took that certification path right up to the top of that pyramid, and I'll do the same with Juniper now because, man, it's just super fun. And would I ever turn to my students and say one organization and one device is better than the other? No. Would I say that Juniper does some things that are remarkable? Yes, and so does Cisco. So that's a lot of the reason why when we walk into a data center today, we don't see the equipment from all one vendor. That is so rare. You're going to walk into a data center and you're going to see, somebody's switches and somebody's routers and someone's security appliances, and you're going to see a mix of equipment. So I think we owe it to ourselves, students, to be trained in as many areas as we can.
So cross-training Cisco and Juniper is probably a good idea since we'll probably see them both sitting on a rack. Are there any other vendors that you would recommend, Anthony, that we get into as networkers?
In the routing space, I'll tell you, it's Cisco is the king. It's Juniper running second, and then there's a lot of HP devices out there. So we certainly would consider HP as well. It's really funny, when you look at our training catalog, you start to get into titles that literally wouldn't have the traction for us necessarily. But I'll tell you what, in the world of core routing and switching, Juniper and Cisco rule the world, and those are two disciplines that our students should consider. And you are not starting from scratch. I mean, Jack, I know you are going through towards your CCIE right now in the area of Cisco, and you would catch on so quickly on these devices, And like I said, in many ways, you'd go, oh my gosh, Juniper did this so much better than Cisco. And then in other areas, of course, you would say, oh, come on, this is so easy on a Cisco device. Come on, Juniper, why'd you make this hard? But the bottom line is you are educated in both of these disciplines, and that is hugely important because, as I said, Jack, if you're in the headquarters of CBT Nuggets today, just walk over to our server closet and you will see Juniper and Cisco racked and stacked in there.
Yes, sir. And I'm glad you touched on that. We're often talking about cross-training between different disciplines, even, going as far of a jump as from Cisco to Microsoft or from Cisco to Juniper or from any other place. And I don't mean to make one particular discipline put it in the spotlight, as it were. But you touched on so many things that could branch out from that. Looking at your course online real quick, and I know we've only got about 60 seconds left. I'm looking at the Juniper Networking Level 1. Is that where I would want to start if I'm brand new to Juniper and I really want to get my hands dirty?
Yeah, exactly. So Juniper has the equivalent of the CCNA. They didn't bother with a CCENT kind of course. So they have the equivalent of their CCNA, to use Cisco language, and that is absolutely a great starting point. And Jack, it's really funny, you with your Cisco certification. So it's JNCIA Juno since JN0-102. And there's nuggets in there about, like, what is TCP/IP and how does addressing work and those things. So, I'm sure you're chomping at the bit right now, right? Because you know all that as a CCNA. What you don't know is the various configuration modes on the Juniper device and the different commands that you would be using. But again, that would be very simple for you. On a Cisco device, we say router, OSPF1, and then network, blah, 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 with a wildcard mask, area, blah, blah, blah. It is a very similar command set on the Juniper device. So you would be off and running very quickly.